became really popular, cheerleading, it didn't take much to do. It was usually just kind of to look pretty on the sideline and just to get like the crowd going a little bit. But after a while, people kind of thought like we should probably amp it up a little bit, and hence why cheerleading is so complex right now and takes a lot of skill and everything. So before there was no skill needed, and now they've set up rules and like you can compete now, and you have to have like jumps, tumbling, stunts. So I believe that competition cheerleading should be considered a sport, because of all of the things that require a sport to be a sport. Cheerleading has. So what qualifies cheerleading as a sport is the contact, competition, and the athleticism. So with contact, you have to have contact with another team, like with another sport, but you do have contact in cheerleading, which is within your team. So when you're stunting, tumbling, you can hit someone. When you're stunting, you can fall. You're constantly near other people in your routine. So when you can like kick people in the face, and in an article, Frederick mentions when a cheerleader is thrown 25 to 30 feet in the air by athletes standing on a wood floor, an accident is waiting to happen. He just talked about how dangerous the sport is. And in one of my YouTube videos, actually it's called Sports Science Pits of Football Against Cheerleading, and they tested to see which sport had more of an impact on your body. And they had 2 test dummies with force sensors on their head, neck, back, and legs. And they had one mimicking a flyer and one getting tackled. And the result came back that the cheerleader had 2,000 pounds of force and football only had 1,800. It's not a big difference, but it is a big difference. So even though cheerleading is not a contact sport in terms of like with another team, there are a lot of dangers in the sport. You can have contact with your other teammates. So the competition, there's high school and college competition, and college is more advanced. High school is still kind of advanced, but they compete against other teams from different schools. High school has certain rules. You're not allowed to do certain stunts and tumbling passes. You can do 3 rounds, which is like creativity round, which is round 1, precision and timing, which is round 2, and stunning and tumbling, which is round 3. Whereas in college, it's almost similar to all-star cheerleading, where you just do one set routine with music, and that includes jumps, stunting, and tumbling. In college, it is run by the NCAA, and they make sure that that even though you can do more elite stunting and tumbling, they make sure that the teams are safe. So they have rules set in place where you have to have people around to spot you. So if you fall, like they can catch you. They can get really nitpicky about little things like fingers together, your feet pointed. And one of my articles had an interesting fact, and it said, as the National Federation of State High School Association and the Women's Sport Foundation, they define a sport. A sport is played for a competition to have rules to follow. A sport team exists to score points, not to perform or entertain the audience, and it is an important factor of realization. This was interesting to me because, yes, it's not like basketball where you can score the most points and then you win, but the teams are scored through numbers. So in high school, it's like great if you break like a 730, and in college, it's out of 100. So the closer to 100, the better. So technically, you are being scored and looking for the highest placement. So a third reason cheerleading should be a sport is the athleticism. So if you think about it, like you have to have a strong mind mentally and physically. So cheerleaders, like people think all they do is just jump around, but really we work out just as much as other sports teams, if not more. You need your whole entire body to be strong. So we have like 3-hour practices. I'm sure other people do too, but we do too. So you have to be really flexible. So unfortunately, despite all the positives and all the reasons I gave on how competitive cheerleading is a sport, there are still people who don't think it is. So the counter arguments, they think that it's more of an activity. So in one of my sources, it states that the NCAA doesn't actually consider cheerleading as a sport. So I guess people are saying, well, if the NCAA doesn't, then we shouldn't either. And then they say that cheerleading is not a sport because of the competition aspect. So basically just the requirements and the safety rules, they just don't agree with. So yeah. And then the summary of my main points were whether or not competitive cheerleading is a sport or not has been a debate for many years, and I can see where people are coming from. Ultimately, I still remain sided with that it is a sport. I mentioned that you have contact, you compete with a score base and the athleticism. So I guess now that you have like a better understanding of what competitive cheerleading is, I guess you can have a different mindset on whether or not it's just like an extracurricular.